rape victim has not to be disclosed. Otherwise, the human conscience says that don't disclose it, because it's a human understanding. Our understanding is that it has not to be disclosed. But I suppose that there has to be a proper code, codified. A legal shape has to be given to such things that this is not to be reported. This is to be reported. As a student of law, we understand that any action taken by the government, there's a protection clause, there's a saving clause. Any act done by the, or any action or omission on the part of the state government or the state official done in good faith is protected. No legal action can be. Why not be it in favor of a journalist who is doing a fair reporting, who is very careful, but he is always a sword of criminalization, a sword of legal action, sword of complaint is always hanging on his head. That this is not, he is not able to move, or he is not able to properly do justice with his profession. With these words, I once again thank Nandini Sahai, Mr. Dayan, and Sara East, and Mr. Nashoot, the International Goa Center, which has given me this opportunity to speak here. Thank you very much.
Next comes Nazir Hussain from Hyderabad.
Thank you very much. Such a big walkout I've hardly seen any session. And Sarva, the last thing I expected from a friend. Last thing I expected from a friend, go city. I'm just joking.
A lot of attention. We'll get it
Take a break. My God, if you need tea to get attention from me,
You already get crashed into the first second.
I know.
That's why.
That's why. Now there is a story to that, Gautam. There is a story to that.
Don't mind.
See, in fact, I don't think I gave up tea 16 years back, so no problem. Yeah. So, you see, I had heard a lot of times about, I felt very sympathetic to them about people being visually challenged, mentally challenged, physically challenged, and I thank myself that fortunately, by God's grace, I am not challenged in any way. Till the topic was given to me on which I was to speak. Legal challenges of reporting conflict. Then I realized how legally challenged I am. And that is where I pleaded with Rajeshwar Bhai, please get me out of this into anything else, but not this session. And he was kind enough to put me in the very first session, and I thought I have escaped my public exposure about my challenge. But then the long arm of the law, in the form of Rajeshwar Bhai, caught me again, I am sure.
To make a human rights complaint.
Yes, yeah. I want to share another aspect with you, another secret. See, I had this jinx always. I found that whenever I am invited to speak anywhere, I always get
people work out.
People, yeah, that's also there. But that was a secret I was not willing to reveal. But I find somehow that I am always given the afternoon session. And I thought this time I had escaped. I got the very first session of the workshop. And see, God has got his own plans, which operate through Rajesh Bhai. And I find myself not only in the post-lunch session, but the very last speaker of that session.
We're all at rich. Don't worry.
Oh. Yeah, but then you don't have to worry, you can go to sleep. I'm going to make one more request to the audience, that after this session is over, please clap very vigorously so all those who are asleep can get is over. Not for me, but for your neighbor. Now, coming to this theme, I would not venture to talk about the legality aspect till the very end, till I get maybe some confidence. But I would like to look at it from the human rights lens. As I was mentioning yesterday in my presentation, that the very basis for democracy is equality. And equality has to presume human rights. No human rights, no equality, no democracy. This, I think, is a tautology. This has to be accepted as an axiom for any political formation around democracy. But unfortunately, I think what is happening is that our democracies in practice somehow tend to posit more importance on the state than on the individual. Any democracy that you see, any democracy that is functioning, it posits more importance to the state than to the individual, and you cannot sacrifice the state for the entire country's population. But any individual and all the individuals can be expended for the interest of the state. So this, I think, is the contradiction. It is the problem that we need to understand. And I think this whole business of creating an hallowed state, and which is put on a pedestal over the individuals, which have got rights over the individuals. This is the problem of our nations. This is the problem for our human rights. And this, I think, I'm sitting in a room full of journalists, but I think this, to a very large extent, is the creation of the media. State by itself could never have created this hallowedness of the state without the support and help of the mass media. And so, the people in the state, whoever they are, the bureaucrats, the politicians and others, they are as much responsible, I think, for the state of affairs as the members of the media, willingly or unwillingly. I think until and unless we recognize this fact, perhaps we may not be able to catch the bird by the horns. And the unfortunate part is that this whole creation is leading, of the hallowedness of the state, is leading to the myth, fostering the myth of the legitimacy of whatever the state does. You're not only putting the state above a pedestal, but whatever the state does becomes legitimate, and whatever anybody else is doing becomes illegitimate. I think it could not have come out more succinctly than in one clipping in the morning documentary that we have seen. That one of the persons, I think person from media, and I think most of them are from the media background, one of them had said, perhaps some of you would recall, said that if there is any secessionist movement, anything like that, and whether it is using arms or it is not using arms, the state should crush it. What more unfortunate statement can there be of putting the state on the pedestal and legitimizing anything and everything of the state? And I think I don't understand legality, and I think I'm happy that I never had any occasion to be with any lawyers in that sense professionally, but I think I understand this much, that in our society, what is legal, what is legality, should not be considered to be confined only to the statute books, criminal procedure code and all that. A lot of our so-called legality, I think, is also created in our perceptions. It may not echo in those books. And a lot of times, we tend to posit something as legal, posit something else as illegal. Although in the books it may not be reflected. I'll give a concrete example also for this. Resistance. if you come to Kashmir, people would call them militants, state would call them terrorists. You have two different legal frameworks you are using, I think. If you are calling them militants, you are bringing them within a legal framework, thinking that what they are doing is legitimate. You are calling them terrorists, you are pushing them out of the legal framework, making them illegal. This is not there in the statute books. So I think we need to expand our understanding of the legal framework, legality. So legality is what is there in the constitution, what is there in your penal codes and all that. Legality is also what is constructed in our popular perceptions and mostly through the media. And I think it is in this construction that, as it was being pointed out in the morning also, I think Gautam had pointed out, or I don't know, some others had also pointed out, that you have the creation of some heroes and you have creation of devils. And this again happens because whom you are willing to take in the framework of what you call legal and in the framework of what you call illegal, or beyond the framework of legal to make them illegal. And I think it is this which is most dangerous. We had a reading at the beginning of the session of this Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Nothing could be more illegal than that. But how many of us have challenged that, and how much of time it has come in the media challenging it constantly? If you don't challenge the illegality of even those aspects which are deemed to be and projected as taken within the ambits of the legal, so-called legal, I think we are failing. Just because it is there on some book, to be accepting that as legal, I think is not really very courageous, and it is not really, it will not do justice to a true, honest journalist. And another instance which can be given is that of encounters in this aspect. Encounters can never be legal, but then they are given the garb of legality. I think lot of times, lot of common people, when they hear about or read about an encounter, they don't take it as illegal. Encounters have come to be understood as legal operations of the state against some criminals, against some anti-national forces, terrorist forces, whatever. So I think this is also something which needs to be challenged by the media. And I think why this is happening is because media is coming to represent more and more certain interest groups, certain vested, or rather certain specific dominant communities, and all in the name of so-called national interest, public good. Whereas it is neither national interest nor public good, but the interest of some very specific, minuscule. Now the West is at last defining them as 1%. So I think one needs to understand that media is not just creating perceptions as we understand. Media is also creating the framework for legality. When it is silent on the issue of AFSPA, it has created a framework for legality to give it legitimacy. When it is silent, not questioning the encounters, it's created a framework for legality. When it is silent, the idea which came to my mind was that of a mason who's constructing a chimney. A mason who's constructing a chimney, and this chimney doesn't have any windows and any doors, no exit. And is going on constructing this chimney, up and up. And as you know, the chimney starts with a wide base and keeps getting narrower and narrower. I think soon a time will come when this mason would have constructed the chimney, but may not be able to get out of it. Will get trapped in the same chimney which the mason has created. And I think this legal framework, this what I would call illegal framework of legality, which is being created by the media all over the world. Already I think in the West, it has reached that level where this mason of the Western journalists they're stuck in that. I happen to read a lot of Western media also, and I think they are not able to get out of it. They are able to peep out of that chimney, see that they are stuck, that reality is something else, but they are not able to come out of it. They are not able to challenge the system anymore because they are trapped. Fortunately, with us in South Asia and other places, we have still got some more time, a few years maybe, before that chimney can come to that height where we may not be able to get out. And if we don't get out now, out of the chimney which we are creating, we will also be trapped. We will also have only our eyes peeping out, unable to do anything. And, I'm sure my friends here from India and Pakistan certainly would understand when I talk of the 18th century Anarkali of Mughal Azam, who was Chundi Gaiti, was trapped in, I think, if we are not careful, the Anarkali of 21st century would be the media. Thank you. Now you can clap to wake up your...
Human rights aspect of the conflicts is a very in fact the core issue in every conflict. See, state is a coercive mechanism. There are no good states, bad states. All states are bad. Whether it is a socialist state, whether it is a democratic state, any other state is a coercive arrangement. As long as state exists, human rights violations are there. This is well known to the Adivasis and the many of the educated people. That's why throughout the history, Adivasis always try to escape the state. This is well documented in the history. Whenever civilized states wanted to invade their areas, there was a fight. In the fight against the state, some Adivasis perished, some escaped deep into the forest. This is recorded. Rabindranath Tagore recorded this. Recently, James C. Scott also recorded why throughout the history society fought against the state. It is an unending saga for the liberation of to keep the society away from the state. So I studied this conflict that is rising in the Central Indian forest. See, the Adivasis of the Central India are fighting. Their fight is not a new one, but this is going to be their last battle. In the earlier fights, they escaped the effect of the state by migrating to the interior of the forest. Now they cannot escape. State is surrounding them. Either they have to perish in the war or get subjugated by the state. So this fight, a crucial fight, I consider this is the world's largest green movement. If in this fight, a decisive fight, it is a life and death fight. If these Adivasis are defeated, it is going to herald a ecological disaster in the country. So, Adivasis, it is a very interesting community. Our Adivasis interaction with the state is minimal. If you go from villages into the interior forest, their interaction with the state is so low that we can call them as a stateless people. They take very less from the state, so they depend very less on the state. So, whenever state operators enters their area, they feel disturbed. So, in the realm of development, state always try to colonize these areas, they oppose it. This is exactly what is happening now after the passage of the 1993 new mineral policy by the government of India. So this policy enabled mining companies to enter these forest areas. So these forests, see for example, it is their locality. So locality, Arjun Appadurai says, locality is inscribed on our body, on our aspects of life, on our food. So for centuries, these Adivasis are living in the forests, in a locality where they get everything to sustain their life. So once they are uprooted from their locality, it will lead to their neutralization. So government, after permitting the mines and mineral processing units in these areas, it wants to rehabilitate, uprooting them from their own locality, which shaped their lives, their culture, and everything. It wants to shift them to a newer locality where Pakka houses are built under Indira Awas Yojana. See, shifting tribal people, Adivasis, from their original locality to a newer locality, where they have to depend everything on the government, from ration to electricity to everything. So this is almost death knell to the lakhs of Adivasis in the central India. This is exactly happened in the Andhra-Orissa border, where Andhra and Orissa government allowed some foreign companies and some Indian companies to mine the bauxite and process the mineral for the export purposes. So, for a people who practice the act of not being ungoverned, they don't like being governed by any state. So, into these areas, their areas, state is now entering in the name of development. So, this human rights has given rise to a terrible, unprecedented conflict in these forest areas. So, this is one aspect. Human rights, see, for the root cause of every conflict in the world is the violation of the human rights. So, here, the government plan to shift tribal people from their original home to other place is a violation of human rights. So in a newer locality, which is where they would be aliens, so it's almost cutting their umbilical cord with the area they are living in. So Central Indian conflict particularly is the product of the government's planned violation of human rights. This is one aspect. The second aspect is